What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Detroit Lions podcast with Bischoff and Brown. I'm Russ Brown. With me, as always, Scott Bischoff, my man. How are you on a Friday?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I mean, look, our football team's 5-1. We're not doing this on our normal Wednesday spots. We kind of know where the health is of some of our guys. It looks like we're going to get Gibbs back this week. We'll see. Branch should be back. That's what it's looking like. So things are kind of trending in the right direction. But I'm excited to talk a little football here because the Lions beat the Bucs 20-6, and we moved to 5-1 on the year. I don't know, how you're feeling. I don't know how you were. I mean, I can't really remember how you were feeling going into this game. I feel like we both kind of felt like it was a little trappy, but the Lions won in a convincing way, and the defense just continues to just thrive. What were your thoughts on the game?
I mean, that's exactly how I felt, and we both did. I did not think that they were going to be able to run it in a traditional sense against Tampa, and they didn't. But you mentioned J-Mo making a big play. Good call.
That was lucky.
Well, still, but, and the way he's running now, the way he's moving it's very much the way he moved at Alabama. Mm-hmm. Specifically, the route where he runs on the sideline, and the ball's underthrown, but the way he stops and leaves the cornerback just, flailing for 5 to 6 yards.
Yeah.
If that pass is complete, I think he scores because there is nobody anywhere near him, and he's just running away from the defender. He's got inside leverage, and he's just going to run away. I think it went kind of like I thought it would go for them on offense. And then, defensively, the Lions looked dominant again. And again, it's the same kind of stuff as the Carolina game where you feel just a touch uncomfortable how easy it is that it's the wrong word, but how just, maybe it is the right word. I don't know. That game was never really in doubt. They really stifled Tampa in a lot of ways. And even in a low scoring sort of grinded out game, Goff played great. They did not run, which I'm fully expecting. I did not expect they would, but they still managed to make things happen, to score a couple touchdowns, and just to really defensively just kind of. I mean, there were moments when Godwin was getting his a little bit, and Evans was open here and there, but they did I think they played a little contained there where they allowed Baker to just make mistakes that he's going to make at times. They didn't let him really get outside the pocket. So, I thought it was just another great showing. Interestingly, I think this was the game where a lot of national people saw what they did on the road there and have decided they're jumping in. They're all in just because of how easy they're making these things look. Yeah. We'll see what happens this week, but yeah, I mean, it was a fun game to watch. It still is like, what's happening here? But
I know.
It's great.
Yeah, and I think the thing is you mentioned easy. I want to label it as like flawless the way that they're playing because sure, like it wasn't a perfect game. They couldn't run the football, but they had 2 backup running backs for basically the majority of the game running the football. They're not going to hit the holes in the openings like Gibbs or Montgomery. They're not getting those first team reps. So I think that's the key. Those guys were kind of put on the spot, and Craig Reynolds did what he could do. And he had a key block on the St. Brown touchdown, which
huge play.
I mean, that block that might be one of the plays of the season when we look back at this in a few months. I mean, I don't know if you saw the angle from like the crowd, but on Barstool Detroit on their social media pages, somebody filmed it and they, sent that in, and it's like from the crowd, and all you see is this guy just running out of nowhere and just leveling this guy. And I think it was Carlton Davis that he hit, but I mean, that's what this team does. Like everybody contributes and they do their job and they don't quit on the play and they don't quit on each other. Like that's what you don't see. You don't see guys walking out on the field. They run their routes hard. They block till the whistle. Everybody's doing what they can to get points on the board and stop the opposition from scoring. And it's just something that I don't think we've ever seen from this team particularly, but really from a lot of teams. Like the good football teams, the teams that win championships do exactly what Detroit's doing. And it's weird to say.
For sure. And I would even say that they're going above and beyond. Yeah. I mean, did Reynolds need to get out in front of that to spring that? I don't know that that's necessarily a play that I would hope that that's not a designed kind of thing, but it's more the focus and awareness to see it and then the hustle to get there.
Yeah.
And spring that. It's just, and I think it tells you a lot about their locker room and like you said, these are the things that winning teams do. I think that is an indication of what's happening inside their locker room and just how cohesive things are and how just dialed in they are, which is a really, really good thing. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing real negative you could say about that game. I mean, we shouldn't. They went to 5-1. They're tied in the NFC for. They've tied for the best record in the NFC, and interestingly, people are now going to start talking about them nationally as they're going to be challenging for a bye and all these things. And it's like, well, when you look at the schedule, if you've played that game, they could easily be doing that. So this week is this week feels like a test. And then there's, in the NFL, it's every week. You need to play every week, but this one feels like a test. And then there's one game later in the season that does too. And outside of that, it feels like, well, where are the losses on this schedule? Where are the traps? Where are the where are the holes they're going to step in? They'll step in one or two. They will. It's just from this point, the way they've played. It's been pretty remarkable as a Lions fan to watch this play out.
No, yeah, I was talking to a buddy, and I try not to look ahead too far, but like you start just going down the schedule, and you're like, all right, maybe they lose this one, maybe they lose that one. All of a sudden, you get done, and you're at 14-3 or 13-4, and you're like, this can't be. Like I'm doing this wrong, right?
Yep. So they're gonna lock up the division on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's possible.
What the hell?
you never know. I mean, the way it's trending, and we'll get into the Ravens stuff here in a minute, but I will just say offensively real quick against the Bucs, they couldn't really get the ground game going. They only had 40 yards rushing, but man, how about just the game plan from Ben Johnson and just this offense in general? Like, okay, hey, we can't run the football, so let's just sling it around. And Goff throws 44 passes. He completes 30 of them. And of those 30 passes, he went to 10 different receivers. And still St. Brown had 12 receptions for 124 yards and a score. I mean, how good is Amon-Ra St. Brown? I mean, just not a lot of people talk about him as a top receiver in the NFL or even maybe a top 5 receiver, because you have the Metcalfs, you have Tyreek Hill, you have Jamar Chase, you have all these names, but you go down the list and I mean, the way he plays, I think he's a top 5 receiver in the NFL. And I'm not trying to get like hot takey on a Friday, but he certainly looks like it.
Production-wise, he's there. I mean, he is there. It's just he's not big, sexy, fast, all that stuff that people want to see. He's not 6'2" and running sub 4.4 guy. He's just not. That's not his game.
Right.
He's more precise with his routes and super reliable and all that stuff. But I mean, I think he's going to get paid a lot of money when it's time, and it will be well deserved.
Yeah, and I think that's something as we get into the offseason, I think that'll be something that we'll definitely talk about, and definitely fans will be talking about who's getting paid, because Sewell's going to have to get on the books. St. Brown's going to have to get on the books. Goff's going to get an extension. You got to get prepped for Hutch. I mean, there's going to be some deals that they're going to have to figure out. But this just doesn't seem like a greedy group of guys either. So I don't know if, maybe Goff gets a big deal just because of the position, but I don't think we're going to see like a ton of record-breaking deals for a lot of our guys, because I think a lot of them want to be here and a lot of them want to win. So
yeah,
I don't know.
That's going to be an interesting time because we have not experienced this in the past.
Right.
The money crunch of, all right, they're doing such a good job of picking players that we have to pay all these guys. And that's painful.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
Right.
But,
no, and the thing of the past was, we'd have guys like Stafford and Sue on the books and stuff like that. And you had Calvin. But other than that, your drafts weren't great. You weren't bringing in a ton of talent there. Like maybe, out of the 7 or 8 players that you draft, you'd find 2 guys. But other than that, those guys weren't even getting second contracts. Your big contracts were to Reggie Bush and other free agents that were here for a year, maybe 2. So
it's definitely different times. I mean, it really is. And they've done a great job, since they've been here in managing, not paying players a bunch of term and a bunch of money. You're bringing in guys on 1-year deals and just kind of figuring it out that way. But in the meantime, you're building through the draft, and we can see, the effects of that. You have all these players, these young guys who you expect to get paid, and it's just a testament to what they're doing in the draft. It really is. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. We're at 5-1. We're winning convincingly on the road. We've won 3 straight games by double digits, which is just unheard of in the NFL. So they're doing some remarkable things, and that's probably why a lot of power rankings have them as maybe the top team on a lot of them. Unless you're, part of somewhere else, you might have them at like 7th or 8th for some odd reason. But it is what it is. Yeah, it's power rankings. It's clickbait. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But back on the road, Lions got the Ravens. This one's simple. Lions, road game, Ravens. What do we think is going to happen here? I mean, we're not going to get crazy as far as, score predictions or stuff. We're following that trend. I'm not making another score prediction for the rest of the year after that Seattle game. But, we know what to expect in this game, right? It's Lamar Jackson. It's Zay Flowers. And then it's obviously just the Ravens defense. The Ravens are known traditionally for having a very well-rounded defense, whether it's Kyle Hamilton or whoever is on that defensive unit that's going to get after it. But starting with the offense, Lamar Jackson, we got to find a way to contain it. What is the best way to contain him?
I don't know. Is there any way that he, I don't even want to say it. I was going to say something terrible. I don't know how you contain him, but it seems that there is some strangeness around that team and they really haven't played anybody, so it's tough to really get a good gauge for what the Ravens are on offense. But Lamar looks more early in his career when he got outside, when he escaped pressure, you would hold your breath because you just expected something significant with him as a runner. And it doesn't quite feel that way anymore with him. It almost is like he's more of a scrambler than a torch you with his legs kind of runner. I don't know if he's lost a touch there, or if they're coaching him not to do certain things as a runner. But yeah, Zay Flowers is a really nice route runner. Mark Andrews is a very good tight end, but he's not always super productive. Like there are moments when he just disappears where Jackson just can't seem to get he can't find him, or they can't get on the same page. And then there's some strange, I want to say it's almost bizarre. Like you see them sort of just roll down the field on offense super easy, and then they get a holding call down in the red zone, and it all falls apart. Where I don't know if this team just struggles with some level of adversity. You saw it a couple of weeks ago with some drops. I think that there's an element of Lamar Jackson's playing really, really well right now, and the offense is struggling to get it going and to finish drives in the end zone. I don't totally know what to make of it. Although, there's danger in and around this offense, and you have to do your best I would think that getting pressure on him and getting him rattled is absolutely the approach that you want to take. But there's a level of danger that goes with that. That if you do that, let's say you allow your ends to just really go, and you create running lanes for him. I don't know that that's super smart either. So we may see a game plan like what you saw in week 1 and week 2, where there's a lot of contain and just forcing him to stay somewhat in the pocket and beat you as a traditional passer, and then asking his weapons to make plays, which to this point, yes, Zay Flowers has done, but not. I mean, Rashad Bateman's been a severe disappointment.
Yeah.
Beckham looks okay, but it's once or twice a game. So you know what I mean. So it's hard. It's really hard to know because they haven't played anybody. But I guess that's what I think about what's happening with Baltimore, and there's just some just weirdness around their offense. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, no, it just seems like they can string, like you mentioned, they string together, a good drive here and a good drive there, but it's just not as consistent as the Lions offense has been. And it hasn't been as consistent as, some of the offenses that the Lions have played, right? Like Seattle, when they can get going, they get going. The Chiefs, as we know, they get going, they get going. Yeah. But with the Ravens, I mean, they struggled at times against Tennessee last week. And I get it. Tennessee's got some good football players on their team. They just don't have a quarterback. But I think the key is that I just wasn't impressed with what I saw out of Baltimore last week. We all got to watch them. They were international on that game. So, sure, Lamar scares me. That worries me. Zay Flowers is going to run some effective routes over the middle of the field. You mentioned Mark Andrews, but he disappears. And like you said, he just – there's moments where he's not involved in the offense and not involved in the game plan. And I think a lot of it is because he runs routes in the middle of the field, stick routes and those types of things. And if Lamar's on the move, Lamar's rolling to his right, rolling to his left, that stick route means absolutely nothing now. So I think if Baltimore was smart, they would look at some of the crossers that was ran by the Bucs. Chris Godwin was open on a couple of them. Mike Evans was open on a couple of them. Even Trey Palmer was open, and Baker just missed him deep a couple times. I think if they can get something like that going, they might have some success, but a lot of it's going to have to be circled around either Mark Andrews or Zay Flowers, because you mentioned Rashad Bateman's been somewhat of a disappointment, and Odell Beckham only does make consistent plays 1 or 2 times a game. I mean, he's only getting 2, maybe 3 catches a game, and a lot of it's like slant patterns and those types of things. So I don't think you have to worry about like the vertical threat ability there. Now, I will say Nelson Aguilar, maybe in the design screen game, he might find something. Maybe he finds a crease, but I don't know. They don't give the ball enough to Justice Hill. They don't, they give it to Gus Edwards at weird times, and he just kind of looks slow and kind of out there as a guy. So again, I think if you find a way to keep Lamar in the pocket or just in front of you, they're going to be just fine. I don't know if this is going to be some crazy game. They just have to score offensively and make sure that it doesn't come down to Justin Tucker, right? I mean, that's probably their biggest weapon.
and I mean, he had 6 field goals last week? Just
something like that.
It feels like the Lions could string together a pretty nice win here against a team that again, it's hard to really know what they are. I mean, the Steelers gave them everything they could possibly want, right? And the Steelers that's not a good football team. Tennessee, they have pieces, but it's not a good football team, right? So the last couple of weeks, the Ravens have just kind of played, I would almost say, not good football. And Lamar is terrifying. He is, but there's just something strange about what they're doing on offense. And it's hard to describe it other than as just strange. Like they're not scoring the number of points that they could and should be scoring for what they have. I'm interested to see what the Lions' defensive line looks like and what their edge pressure looks like against this offensive line. Maybe there's a little more there than we think, and the Lions have an advantage in that situation where you are harassing Lamar and he is, running for his life kind of stuff. And that's a great scenario.
Right.
Because I think that, as long as the second level can get to him and he is running and not necessarily making plays outside structure, throwing the ball, letting him run a little bit is okay. Yeah. It's just you don't want him running. You don't want him constantly running for first downs and extending drives. And that's historically been something the Lions have struggled with. But the Lions defense is a significantly different thing than it was a year ago. So we'll see. I have good vibes about what the Lions defense should do in this game, but it's hard to know. Just, being a little tempered in our approach to what we really think about things and not wanting to be overly cocky about the Lions are just better than Baltimore and they should be able to go on the road and win that game easily. That's just not necessarily how it works all the time. So, on offense, it's a different story.
Yeah, and I think defensively, this is a great matchup for Detroit because we've seen a historic run by the defense as far as stopping the run and that type of stuff. I mean, again, they only gave up like 47 yards total offense or rushing yards wise to the Buccaneers this past weekend, and they're just trending just in a great direction as maybe one of the best historic run defenses of all time if they keep this going. But they play against a team that can run the football. And I mean, when you look at when you look at the Ravens, they average 140 yards rushing a game. And a lot of that is Lamar Jackson. And they convert, 45% of their third downs. So a lot of that, again, though, is Lamar Jackson. So if they can get Brian Branch back and he can kind of patrol the middle with Alex Anzalone, who, by the way, for folks that didn't watch it, he played out of his mind against the Bucs. And his ability to just sift through traffic or, scrape over the top and just fill in those run fits is incredible. And he's been so consistent this year, and it's been huge. So I think having Branch, Anzalone, Campbell, Barnes, those guys at that second level is going to be really key to keeping, I think, Lamar limited, but also stopping Gus Edwards and Justice Hill and the running backs that they do have. So we'll see obviously what happens, but I don't expect the Ravens offense to go off. I expect this game to be relatively close, maybe 24-20, 24-16, 24-17, something like that. Yeah. Hopefully in the right direction for Detroit. We'll see. But offensively, I think it's much of the same of what we've been seeing, right? I mean, if they get Gibbs back, okay, you feel a little bit better about the rushing attack. There's going to be some tough sledding because, again, the Ravens, they have players like, Roquan Smith and like stuff like that. But I think if Gibbs can get going, you can get Reynolds going, that's going to alleviate, obviously, a lot of pressure off Goff. And even if it doesn't, we saw what he can do passing. I don't think it matters. St. Brown is just going to be the difference maker underneath. And I still think J-Mo's going to have another good game here. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely trending, and it feels like it's coming. Like, it feels like it's building to something crazy.
Yeah.
I do think that it's similar. It's similar to last week's game, the way the Lions are going to approach this. It's the same kind of 3-4 look with linebackers who really flow and can run, but they don't have a Vita Vea, right? So they don't. So I think you'll be able to. I do think that they'll run it a little more successfully to keep them in good down and distance kind of things, which is great for Jared Goff. So I think they'll run a little more effectively than they did last week, or at least attempt to. Last week it was just almost like they. Like you said, they kind of recognized that they weren't necessarily going to be able to, so they didn't even bother.
Right.
Like, well, we'll do it here and there, but we're going to do different things. And I don't think that I don't think the Ravens D line is anything like what it once was.
Right.
So there are matchups that you can take advantage of there, and it's just then mitigating what the linebackers want to do. And a player like Kyle Hamilton in the back end kind of thing, where you have to pay attention to his ability to cover ground. But good vibes, really good vibes about what this offense is doing and what it should be able to do in this game. And like you said, I think we are looking at a lower scoring tighter game, maybe a tighter game than we've seen in a little while. Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since they played a tight game.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, good vibes all around. Like, it's the same kind of feeling like, yeah, it's not going to totally shock you if Baltimore wins this game, but the Lions are absolutely going there and are 100%, in this one, and if things go well, they should walk away with a W here, which is, thinking about them winning this game, and then you've got the mini bye before the bye.
Right.
Looking ahead, it's just like, yeah, this is a huge one. This game is huge. We're going to keep saying this. Every one of these that goes by, this is Baltimore on the road. Mm-hmm. Like, we're talking about Baltimore on the road and talking about how, you really should be able to limit their offense. And if you do that on offense, they don't present huge challenges. They have some people that can cover some ground, but the Lions have shown that they're smart and creative enough to do things to eliminate some of those issues. Misdirection, the play to Amon-Ra last week was all about that, was getting him into open space, and then you just need one little thing to go the right way, and boom, touchdown, boom. Right. Where'd that come from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's the key. And I think with Detroit, they're versatile enough defensively to where, they run a variety of coverages of zone coverage, like cover 3 and cover 1. But there were times against the Bucs that they ran, a 2-high shell, and they were just in cover 2 man. And you had, a traditional 4-3 look, and you had your backers like Anzalone and Campbell. They were spread out wide, and Barnes was patrolling the middle. And Barnes does a great job scraping over the top and being able to play laterally. So I know Lamar's going to be different, but I feel better about playing the Ravens than I did playing the Bucs. And I don't know why that is. I think because the Bucs were coming off of a bye. You look at the Ravens, they've had to travel. They've got to get kind of used to being back in the Eastern time zone. And I'm sure they adjust pretty quick. They're always on the move. They're pro athletes. I get it. But, they have maybe 1 or 2 bad days of practice. And the Lions, they've been playing on the road. They're used to this. They've been doing this. So I think I just feel, I don't know, I feel good about this game, and maybe that'll come back and bite me, but I just feel better about this than I have in other games. And again, I don't think this, and maybe it's because this isn't a trap game. It's a good football team. So if you end up losing, okay, you lose to the Ravens. It makes sense. But I
feel the exact same way, though. I'm with you. I did feel like the Tampa game was it was a bit of a trap, there was some, they have players on offense. They have explosive guys on offense. They have a really good defensive line. They have a pretty excellent second level of their defense. And those were the concerns in that one. Like, that this is not just a, run them over kind of a team. That's not how that's going to work. So yeah, I'm with you. This one does feel better. Doesn't make me feel better about saying that, but it does. And I think the Lions play a relatively complete game on both, and in all 3 phases, both offense, defense, and then obviously on special teams. You make your kicks, you cover your punts, kind of stuff. I feel really good about it.
No, yeah, I'm with you. And I will say, and I don't know if you feel the same way. Are you concerned at all with Sam Laporta dropping a couple of footballs? Is that concerning at all? I mean, he's done it in a couple of different games now, and that was, I think, maybe his biggest concern coming out of Iowa. It wasn't lateral movement. It wasn't ability to be an inline blocker. He showed he could do it. He was aggressive doing that. It was the drops that were concerning for me. And now it's starting to kind of come in, out into the open that he's dropping some footballs. Like, he had a couple of bad drops on Sunday. I think he had 2, if I remember correctly. And there's been a couple that have hit off his hands and they were out of reach. I won't credit a drop there, but when he's running that dig route or an outbreaking route and he's open and it hits him in the hands and he drops it, it's like, it just seems a little odd. And then he'll come back and redeem himself, and make the correct catch. And it's like, I don't know. I'm just wondering, is the calf playing into these drops a little bit?
I don't know. It's a good question. Drops are always sort of weird how they pop up and when they pop up, and it sucks. It sucks to execute a play perfectly and hit a player in the hands and have it get dropped. It just sucks.
Yeah.
He didn't, physically, he didn't look all that limited to me in that game. I didn't think he looked, in any way limited. So I don't know. The Iowa, they threw it. He was in and around traffic so much at Iowa, because I just think that for whatever reason, that is the most dysfunctional program, I think, in the country. Like, so here's this guy.
My program is.
Here is this guy who is this ridiculous athlete, and you throw him, every pass you throw him is within like 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. And there's a linebacker and a safety and a corner, and there's his own receiver within, touching distance of him, and all these things. And I just wonder if sometimes the bodies that he feels can lead to focus, concentration things. Because I think even on that outbreaking drop, he was expecting contact.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just concentration type things. I don't really know. There's no good answer for it, but it's never a good thing to have a player dropping passes.
Yeah.
Obviously every week that goes by, or every day that goes by that he's further away from whatever calf injury it was, I think it's good. But the fact that he played, it wasn't like a Joe Burrow situation where he needed to sit down and or really risk, re-aggravating something. Right. So, yeah, you mentioned earlier, they're definitely trending in a good way with some of their other injuries. Gibbs, we haven't talked about him. This is be really nice for him to pop a couple explosive plays.
Yeah. And
we've talked about that for weeks now. And then we've included it last week. I didn't expect him to not play. But, his ability to do something explosive combined with Jameson Williams' ability to do it, and then the just stability of what Amon-Ra and Laporta give you, and Josh Reynolds, we should really be talking about him too, and how high a level of Goff is playing. I just think that when you look at it all with that offensive line, we shouldn't be afraid of Baltimore's defense. We just shouldn't.
No, and I agree. And I think you bring up a great point of Gibbs. Like, kind of feels like maybe another spot for a guy. Last week we mentioned J-Mo, a good spot to get a touchdown, a deep shot. I still feel like J-Mo could very well have 3 or 4 catches in this game, maybe close to 100 yards and another deep score touchdown. I really feel that. But with Gibbs, I think it's kind of the same thing. I think we could see 5 or 6 catches from him out of the backfield, maybe him in the slot with the designed screen game. But at the same time, it feels like 8 to 10 carries for him, and maybe he gets 60 yards and a potential touchdown. So I think that's the thing, is there's a lot more to honor for the Ravens defense when you have the playmakers that the Lions have, because it's like, okay, you want to double cover J-Mo, that's fine. St. Brown's going to be open in the slot. Okay, you want to invert a safety down, and now he's double covered. Okay, we got Sam Laporta over the middle. Oh, you want to put a linebacker down in the box as a mid-hook defender, and he's covered. Okay, well, we've got Josh Reynolds on the deep crosser. Like, everything is there for the Lions to be effective. And I think, even though Sam Laporta's had some drops, it's okay. He's, like you mentioned, he's going to be fine. And if there's anybody that I think needs a bye week, it's him, right? He's playing a position that takes so long to transition into the NFL. He's transitioned so well as a rookie, 29 catches so far, like 325 yards and 3 scores. He's played phenomenal. He just, I think, needs that bye week to slow things down a little bit, and he'll get that in 2 weeks, and he'll kind of take a breath, get back after it. So I really...
How much do we give to Ben Johnson there too? Like, think about how tough it is for tight ends to transition, and this guy's doing this.
Right.
Some of it is definitely them creating looks for him and making things a little bit easier for him, it's one of the frustrating things about how things sometimes go in the NFL. Like, why are you making it harder for your players to execute their jobs?
Right.
Nobody's saying to reduce his workload and not let him grow as a player, but there also needs to be opportunities for him to make plays too. Mm-hmm. And they're doing that. And I think last week was a great example of a coordinator and a team understanding what the task was, what the defense was going to do, and how, we're going to struggle against that. So let's do something else, right? Yeah. So I would expect they're looking at Baltimore and trying to figure out what Baltimore does well on defense, and they're going to do things to take advantage of that. They keep running, and I love this. They keep running Jameson Williams on that same sort of deeper slant route. Where if it's single coverage, it's just you cannot cover him. He's too fast. You just can't do it. And no offense to Goff has not hit him well with one of those targets yet. Like even the pass, I don't think the pass last week was a good throw at all. Mm-mm. It was to the wrong leverage. So Jameson just made an incredible adjustment to that route or to that ball. But that ball's got to be thrown out in front of him so the defender kind of stays on his back hip. And I don't care who it is. They're not running with Jameson Williams. So as long as they're setting that up for him to run, 15 yards or so and then break at an angle, it almost doesn't matter what the defender does. It's not coverable. It's just not. So that's something that has been there all along. Like run him. Now, I wasn't necessarily wanting to see the deep slant. I just wanted him to run like a crossing route. Like run him 10 to 12 yards and then have him run full speed across the width of the field. And I don't care who's covering him. He's going to leave them in his dust and turn the corner for a huge play. So, it's obvious that the Lions are dialing up very smart things for their weapons, and including Laporta. So I think we got to give Ben Johnson some love too for what he's doing, and expect that they'll come out with some ways to beat what Baltimore does on defense.
Yeah, no, and I mean, the Lions played a lot of zone this past week against the Bucs. They carved them up. The Ravens run 59% of the time zone. So I think, that's according to Sports Info Solution, which is, one of the higher rates in the NFL. Or it's more so middle of the road. They do a good job mixing between man and zone. And then that's because they show different fronts and different blitzes and those types of things. But I think this is going to be just a fine spot. And you mentioned the deep crosser. I would love to see that as well. And I think the key is Ben Johnson and Jared Goff too, both of them looking at some of the missed throws and those misplaced balls and understanding, okay, maybe I don't go with my 5-step drop here. Maybe I don't go with my 3-step drop. Maybe I'm just out of the gun. I get the ball, I take 1 step and I chuck it deep and let JMO run as fast as he can to the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's maybe in a fantasy world, but you see it. I mean, you've seen it with fade routes in the end zone and those types of things. They get the ball, they take 1 step and they just kind of throw it up in the air. So I'm not saying he's got to throw it 75 yards down the field in a 1-step drop, but I do think there's a little bit there that maybe they can adjust and fix. And I think that they will. So I'm excited for the game. I know you are. Again, we don't feel like this is a crazy trap game or anything like that. I feel pretty good going into it. So I would love to know what our folks, our subscribers, our fans, what they think. So, if you want to let us know, you can comment in the YouTube comments. And of course, you can rate, review, and subscribe to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, really wherever you get your podcasts. So, Scott, you got anything you want to add to this? I mean, we went kind of long on the Ravens, but that's kind of what our objective is. So I think the Ravens are a team that you can't, take too lightly, but I feel good.
Yeah, I feel good. I would just tell, as the old man of the group, we should enjoy this because it's like this is awesome. What they're doing is just ridiculous. It just is. Let's enjoy it too. I mean, we all should be, and I'm sure everybody is, but fretting over small things. It's football. It's tough. It's hard. Not everything that you draw up is going to work. I think that there's an element of there's some amazing stuff going on right now that we should all be aware of in the moment. And that, I don't know if that sounds a little corny, but whatever. I don't care. Whatever.
No, I'm with you. I mean, it's just one of those enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. Win or lose this weekend, it is what it is. Just keep moving. We got the Raiders next week, so we'll talk about them next week. But you got anything else you want to add or anything
good.
like that? We're good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, everybody, you guys can find us on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft, at Bischoff_Scott. Be sure to smash those follow buttons. But he's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. This is the Detroit Lions podcast with Bischoff and Brown. We'll see you guys next week.